Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. If you are joining for the first time, we appreciate your time as always. Make no mistake, there has been a huge shift in North America at the moment, and African countries must pay attention with regards to the fundamental shift with regards to the United States of America's own engagement with its global partners, and more importantly Africa must make sure that it's listening to what's happening in Beijing, in Moscow, in Delhi, in Washington, and more importantly in Brussels and in Ankara. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because we are at a crossroad as a continent. We have to pay attention on the move made by geopolitical partners from around the world. It is important to note that Africa is at a crossroad. Its strategic relationship at the moment must be on total scrutiny and more importantly on a win-win collaboration. Those partners who are ready to bet for the continent of Africa should be the ones that should be embraced with an open hand. At this time, Africa is making changes that have so many questions. However, the continent is going through incredible challenges at the moment and it needs to make important choices that would impact its population. Africa is facing an incredible growth. Looking at Africa's emerging middle class, a burgeoning population, millions coming out from universities, the continent must make sure that it creates an enabling environment to accommodate this growth. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the United States of America has come up once again with one particular regulation talking about new visa requirement or travel restriction, if you want to put it that way. The United States wants considered to be the beacon of hope, the country where everyone can come in and express themselves, feel free, engage, and particularly speak out their own particular intention and make sure they can criticize at the way they really want to. But in the past couple of months, the United States of America at the moment is facing incredible backlash in terms of its global strategic engagement. Make no mistake, recently, the United States of America singled out a number of countries that will face difficulties in terms of traveling to the United States of America. However, that was based on US's own particular fundamentals, based on their own research considering that some of those countries' nationals pose a risk to the United States of America. However, when the recent move that you will be required as a citizen coming from a number of countries from around the world, I'm talking in this case from the continent of Africa's own perspective, you need to put forward details. You need to show your Facebook messages. Look at your WhatsApp, Instagram, need to be reviewed by immigration officers. In this case, I have an important video here to play. Expert question this particular move by the United States of America at this critical time in its history. It is vitally important to know that at this moment, Africa, you are being told that you are not welcome to an extent, and considering the fact that if you believe that some government in the continent of Africa that shut down internet, that place restrictions with regards to people's own movement and talking about using social media, the United States of America has copied that playbook from some countries in the continent of Africa, which it has also criticized in the past. It is important to note that this particular move by the country of the United States of America had been questioned by experts who say that the US has gone beyond recognition and is restricting freedom. Some experts say that the United States of America has lost its core value. Thanks to Newsroom Africa. Let's roll the clip.
Tsapo Matseba, of course, is a reputation expert. Tsapo, good evening to you. Welcome back to the show. Always good to have you back with us.
Good evening. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So what do you make of this? You're traveling to the US, Tsapo, and when you arrive, you're told at some point in the process to show us your Facebook, your TikTok, and your Instagram. I mean, what do you make of hearing that?
I really thought it was funny in the beginning until I realized that actually they're going ahead with it. I think as a principle, you have a country that is at crossroads with its core values. Remember, the US is known for liberties, democracy, a country of possibilities where anyone from around the world can go and make a better version of themselves. To go and screen people at this level is not only embarrassing, I think, for the sane Americans, the sanity of American business, but it also just says that the US is willing to compromise its values its own values at all costs. But also, it's a country that now the narrative being created by this administration comes across like we don't care about anybody and what anybody else says. We don't care about the world. We don't care about the future. We don't care about the reality. All we care about is our policy direction that we are taking to protect a certain or particular narrative. It's really, really sad to watch. It's not practical. But even if it was to be done prior, which I'm sure they're already doing to screen people's accounts. We all screen employees before we recruit them. But for you to say, I want actually your handle and I want to see what you said about my country before you visit, I think the tourism industry in the US must be reeling with pain and disappointment.
This particular censorship is not uncommon, according to experts. It's important to know that people can be stopped at the immigration entrance. However, it goes a long way to also provide that particular restriction that a number of travelers are very concerned in regards to the United States of America's own approach, considering that messages that may have been sent in the past, that may have been expressed your own particular individual feelings, may be reviewed, and that could have a backlash against you. This, according to some experts, is politically motivated. Let's roll the clip.
All right, let's get into this now. So the United States government has announced a new visa policy requiring all applicants for FM and J non-immigrant visas to set their social media accounts to public. The order, which comes into effect immediately, will apply to Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and other platforms. This is to allow U.S. authorities full access to monitor online activity as part of the vetting process. Officials claim this is aimed at enhancing national security screening, but critics say it raises serious privacy and freedom of expression concerns, particularly for young students and researchers. Well, for more on this, we're joined by Reputation First's Managing Director, Tshepo Matseba, who joins us via video link. And in studio, I'm joined by immigration expert Nicholas Avramis in studio with us. Nicholas, a good evening to you.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thanks so much for coming in again. And Tshepo will join us in just a moment. But I think just as an immigration expert, talk to me about, I mean, what you think of this, what you make of it. Is this really about national security? And how do you think it's actually playing out at, borders?
Well, this is clearly politically motivated. They're clearly, these American visas, these are student visas for studies, vocations, and culture exchange. So clearly, based on what's been happening in the U.S. around the world, they're probably looking for people who are making anti-statements against Israel. Also, I can tell you that at the Canadian-U.S. border, even at various ports of entry throughout the United States, they're looking at people's Facebooks, and they're telling people they want to see if you've made any negative comments about the government, specifically Donald Trump. This is politically motivated, but as an immigration specialist, a recruitment specialist, sending people around the world, this isn't uncommon. Border guards, whether it's the US, Canada, the UK, they have full, absolute, and sole discretion on whether to admit you in the country. And it's not uncommon for them to go through your cell phone to look at emails, Instagram. They're usually looking for sex workers. That's the truth. If they get that sense, that's a big thing for them. But this isn't an uncommon phenomenon, but this is clearly politically motivated.
Yeah, and this is the thing, is that we're living in really, I suppose, tumultuous political times globally, really. I mean, it's one of those times when it's very rare that you'll find someone not posting something political at some point. So just how sustainable is the political intention behind this?
Well, it's very difficult because anyone who travels, and I travel myself, border crossings are busy. They have quotas to reach in terms of how many people, when the flights are coming in, how many people they have to push through. So going through somebody's cell phone and social media, it is going to slow down the line. So you're right, it's not practical, it's not sustainable. It raises a whole bunch of ethical reasons. Usually when they do go through your phone or escort through your phone, whether it's legal or not, they do it. But it's for the security and health of the nation. This is just political, right? Trying to appease a political base or various allies of the U.S. And quite frankly, it's not right.
It is important to know that the United States of America once considered a beacon of hope, like I said, that people leave other countries and run there to seek refugee, and also considering that it has received millions of refugees or thousands of immigrants from a number of countries from around the world who have made the United States of America's home. The US at this particular time has lost that particular gravitas that it used to have. Others are questioning that freedom is dead in the United States of America. Let's play this clip.
I'm trying to imagine, Tsepo, I mean, if we're having this discussion here, outside of the US, what kind of discourse this is causing inside of the US about, whether or not you can and cannot speak out against your own leadership in that country.
No, it's scary because we live in a very instant and digitized world, and a part of that benefit of democracy is that you can speak your mind. Part of access to information and access to tools to communicate means that you can actually, through freedom of speech, within limits, of course, you can express yourself. And there are already guidelines by social media companies, the entities themselves, platforms themselves, about how to deal with people who misbehave on social media. And importantly, there are already guidelines by companies about how employees should behave, by governments about how citizens should behave. So issues that have to do with a threat to a country, treason, and things like that, there are already appropriate mechanisms that are being deployed globally by different countries to deal with problems. But what we're having here is something that comes across like a very invasive situation that undermines transparency. And that brand called Brand USA has always consistently spoken about transparency, liberties, democracy. And the message it's really sending is that we are so arrogant, we are so powerful, that we're not going to even allow anyone to speak, including the citizens. So people would have to deal with issues such as gender parity, issues such as activists against unlawful religious practices, activists against government policies that don't work, must be scared right now, because even if you are in the US, if they can screen people externally, imagine the next level. If this goes through and is practiced consistently, imagine what's going to happen to internal engagement within that country. It's really, really sad for democracy globally.
Based on this particular strict restriction that the United States of America is placing, I think it's going to be affecting immigration policy and those who will be moving to the United States of America, or for those planning to travel for holidays in the United States of America. It's important to know that for those of you who are planning to travel, there is going to be an implication in terms of your own particular social engagement, your own social activity. It means you cannot speak. It means you cannot criticize the government. It means you cannot talk about important areas which are relevant to your own particular social development. You cannot question why your government is going rogue or going this direction or the other direction. These are amazing times around the world. And it's important to know that African nations who in the past have taken such measures are laughing at the United States of America. Let's play this clip.
I heard a business analyst talking this afternoon and saying it's only been 6 months of Donald Trump's administration. We have 3.5 more years to go, and I'm keen to hear from you, Nicholas, if you've seen some changes in the numbers of people wanting to travel to the US. I know that you'll focus quite a lot of it being South Africans that want to move to Canada.
Europe.
And Europe, of course. And we definitely want to hear about that. But how does that compare with those numbers with people having interest still in moving to the US? Has that changed over the past 6 months?
Well, there's definitely a surge in US applications based on Donald Trump's rhetoric and various unofficial or official asylum programs that may or may not exist that we're seeing. But the truth is, the migration of people, think of it as water, right? When there's obstruction, that water will develop pressure and it will pivot intact. And what you're seeing is South Africans, especially in the healthcare workers sector and IT sector, they're looking towards Northern Europe, in particular the Netherlands and Germany, where there is a massive demand for healthcare workers, GPs, doctors, specialists, and care workers. And these nations, now that they have a demand for this human capital, they're easing things up. Their immigration and visa programs are not as volatile. Okay, they're stable as EU member countries. So now we're definitely seeing a shift of South Africans looking to go to the Netherlands. And we also see that from recruiters as part of our recruitment business. More people from Germany and the Netherlands are calling us looking for South African talent. So it's a case of when one door closes, another one opens.
Yeah, that's interesting. So a lot of, I suppose, despite the rhetoric and the stories told about South Africa, the white genocide over the past few months, all of that having died down, obviously, but still a lot of interest in South African talent on the global stage.
No, South Africans are always in demand. Again, it's, a highly skilled workforce, English speaking, all of these universities here, especially the medical schools that we have here in South Africa, they're all recognized globally, whether it's the US, the Netherlands. Licensing for healthcare takes a little bit longer. But again, the world knows about Cape Town and the Silicon Cape. So they're always looking for workers. And again, the US right now is extremely volatile, right? The UK has, in May, announced that it's closing its doors to all healthcare workers. They've now removed or stopped their caregiver program. So again, when one door closes, another one opens. South Africa should be looking to Northern Europe and more stable immigration regimes.
All right.
So what should you be doing? Delete your own social media account before you travel to the United States of America? Experts say this may not be the right move to go. However, it is important for individuals in the continent of Africa to review their own particular relationship and, more importantly, search their own social media account, and if it's need be, don't travel to the United States of America if you know that you are someone who have criticized or spoken about or against the administration in a number of ways. Of course, it is important for African nationals who engage in the United States of America to put this particular policy, because the US's image globally is being questioned as a result of this particular move. However, the US has a right to introduce any particular immigration procedure that it feels deemed necessary for its own particular national security. However, it's important to know that the US is not an island, and it needs immigrants from a number of countries from around the world to propel its economy. If not, these experts are looking for other alternatives. Let's play the clip.
Nicholas, I'm going to close things off now, but Tsepo, final thoughts from you. What we need to be reflecting on, I suppose, from now onwards as we post on social media in these volatile geopolitical times.
Yeah, two important things is that social media, honestly, is not a motive. It's a mirror. And often what you see on social media, people express the reality as they see it. They express and they try to interpret the reality as much as possible. Obviously, with all digital developments, there are shortfalls. And those shortfalls can be addressed through extreme measures like this that actually demonstrate moral panic. That you have a country that's willing to translate its own panic into a global panic and to impact important industries such as migration and tourism. And I think as I've said, for Tourism USA, those entities must be very, very worried right now.
Yeah.
On another level, on a brand level, prioritizing fear over freedom is not a willing formula. It's not one that's going to shift the dial. We know the number of people that are there globally who are on social media platforms who are using them freely because they are actually another extension of global democracy.
Right.
So to try and confine that to monitoring and excessive force in this manner is actually not only, as I said, embarrassing, it is actually a global embarrassment.
Yeah, I must say that it reminds us in South Africa just how fortunate we are to be able to say the things that we're able to say on social media. Tsepo Matsaba is a reputation expert, and Nicholas Avramis there is a migration expert who's reminded us, of course, and it feels good, South Africans, to know that despite all the stories that have been told about our country, there is a great demand for the talent that we have here in South Africa. Let's take a short break. We're back.
I want to thank you for watching. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Let me know in the comment section what you think regards this new particular regulation by the United States of America, why African countries should work closer and go inward to review their options that they do have at the moment to build the African continental free trade area, to create more opportunities, improve on their infrastructure, to give more leeway for nationals and citizens to move across the continent of Africa, to reduce and limit the extent the opportunities that are not in the continent, instead of doing so to let people not move out of the continent to go to the United States of America. Experts say that this particular move is for the short term, as we all have the next couple of years again to deal with the current administration, the United States of America. Hopefully African countries can wake up and make sure that they take some particular measures that are necessary to propel the continent to success. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon, and have a good day. Bye-bye.